Tonight, we drift back through time, past the busy cities, past the modern world, into the cold silence of the Arctic, where the sea meets endless ice, and forgotten ships sleep beneath the frozen waters. This is the story of courage, of mystery, of brave men lost in the unknown. This is the story of the Franklin expedition. So now, let your body grow still, let your breath slow, and let your mind drift north, into the cold white vastness of the 1800s Arctic, a place of wonder and of deep, enduring secrets. So get comfortable, let your body relax, let your eyes grow heavy, and listen as we sail north into the endless cold. It was the mid-1800s. The British Empire ruled the seas, from the Atlantic to the Pacific, across the Indian Ocean. Their ships flew the Union Jack in every distant port. Their maps grew more detailed every year. But one final prize remained unconquered: the Northwest Passage, a hidden sea route through the frozen channels of the Arctic. If discovered, it would connect Europe to Asia, a passage faster and more direct than any other. For centuries, explorers had sought it. Men like Martin Frobisher, Henry Hudson, William Parry, John Ross, all had ventured into the ice, and many had never returned. Ships vanished into fog and snow, their names whispered in sailors' tales. Yet the Royal Navy would not be defeated. In 1845, with technology advancing, with stronger ships and improved navigation, Britain would make one more attempt. The man chosen to lead this daring mission was Sir John Franklin, born in 1786 in Spilsby, England. He had gone to sea at the age of 14, a young midshipman aboard the HMS Polyphemus. He fought in the great naval battles of his day: Trafalgar, Copenhagen, New Orleans, but his true passion was exploration. He had already journeyed to the Arctic on earlier expeditions, earning both respect and hardship. Once, during a disastrous land expedition across Canada, he and his men were forced to eat lichen, leather, even their boots, to survive. For this, he earned the grim nickname, the man who ate his boots. Despite setbacks, Franklin remained respected, a man of discipline, dignity, and quiet courage. At 59 years old, with graying hair and a weathered face, he was called from retirement to lead this new expedition. He accepted, knowing the risks. It would be his final, greatest voyage. 2 ships were chosen for this voyage, not ordinary ships, but vessels built for Arctic survival: HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, both reinforced for the ice. Both had already sailed to the icy south, to the frozen waters of Antarctica, under the command of Sir James Ross. Now, they were refitted for the northern ice. Iron plating strengthened their hulls. Special heating systems were installed. A new technology, steam engines, able to drive the ships even when the winds failed. Their bows were reinforced to break through the pack ice. Supplies were gathered, over 3 years' worth of food: salted beef, ship's biscuits, dried vegetables, and nearly 8,000 tins of preserved meat and soup, an innovation at the time. Clothing was prepared: woolen uniforms, fur-lined boots, thick mittens. Books were loaded aboard, musical instruments, writing paper, everything to sustain the men's minds as well as their bodies. 129 men would crew the ships: officers, sailors, marines, doctors, engineers, even an artist to record the voyage. Sir John Franklin would command HMS Erebus. His second in command, Captain Francis Crozier, would lead HMS Terror. On May 19, 1845, the two ships set sail from Greenhithe, England, waved off by crowds of well-wishers. The last great journey had begun. The ships sailed across the North Atlantic, past the Orkney Islands, past Greenland. They reached Disco Bay, off the coast of Greenland, where they met whalers and transferred their final letters home. From here, the ships would vanish from the world. They turned west into the unknown. Massive icebergs loomed around them, their sails reflected in still, cold waters. The midnight sun hung low on the horizon, bathing the ice in soft, endless light. On-board life settled into routine. Each day, the men performed their duties, charting coastlines, recording the depth of the sea, keeping the logbooks. There were games, readings, musical evenings below deck. The officers hosted dinners. The men wrote letters and diaries. Above them, the Arctic sky shimmered with green auroras, while below, the sea whispered of secrets. The days grew shorter, the light dimmed, and the sea began to change. As the Erebus and Terror pushed deeper into the Arctic archipelago, they entered a maze of ice. Thick slabs drifted slowly at first, but soon the ships were surrounded. The men chopped and hauled at the ice. They tried to free the vessels with saws and poles, but the Arctic does not bargain. By September 1846, near King William Island, the ice closed its grip. The ships were now frozen in place. At first, the men believed it was temporary. They had provisions, warmth, leadership, but the cold grew more intense. The sun disappeared completely. For months, there would be only darkness. Below deck, the men kept to routines: cleanliness, warmth, order. They lit oil lamps. They told stories. They played music to keep up spirits. Above deck, the world was still. No wind, no sound. Only the groaning creak of ice under pressure. The Arctic winter had begun. By early 1847, the crew had spent nearly 8 months locked in the ice, and the ice did not move. Temperatures dropped below -40 degrees Celsius. The darkness pressed on their minds. And worse, illness began to spread. The food, once a blessing, began to poison them. The tinned meat, sealed with lead solder, may have slowly infected the crew with lead poisoning. Symptoms were subtle but fatal: confusion, fatigue, blackened gums, poor judgment. Combined with scurvy, the ancient sailor's disease, and men's health began to fail. Then, the worst blow. In June 1847, Sir John Franklin died. Though the exact cause is still debated, he was buried in the permafrost, location unknown. Captain Francis Crozier took command. Morale was shaken, but Crozier, a veteran polar sailor, did what he could. He rationed food, enforced discipline, maintained hope. Spring came, but the ice still would not break. By April of 1848, the men had endured the unthinkable, trapped in ice for nearly 2 years. Another long winter loomed, cut off from the world. 24 of their crewmates already lost. And still, the ice held fast, unbroken, unforgiving, unmoved. The world around them was no longer just cold. A white maze with no end, no sign of mercy. Captain Francis Crozier, now commander of the expedition after Franklin's death, faced an impossible choice: stay with the ships and likely die waiting, or leave them and face the Arctic on foot. They had waded through 2 full winters, and no thaw had come, so a decision was made. They would abandon the ships and attempt to walk hundreds of kilometers south, across the ice, across the snow, across the unknown. They gathered what they could carry: clothing, rations, flintlocks, charts, a few sacred books, a few silver spoons, and boats hoisted onto sledges, dragged by teams of exhausted men. Imagine it, pulling a boat across solid ice, not for hours, but for weeks, in temperatures that could kill in minutes. Boots cracked from cold, frostbite blackened fingers, eyebrows froze, every breath burned, every breath hung in the air as mist, and vanished like the hope they once carried. They began the march with 105 men. Not all were strong. Some were already sick. Many were weakened by lead poisoning from the very food that was supposed to save them. Some could barely walk. But they tried. Because there was no other choice, the sledges were heavy. Some were built too tall. They toppled. They cracked. Day after day, mile after mile, the Arctic grew emptier. There were no trees, no shelter, no animals, no birds, only ice, and wind and sky. Sometimes the sky turned pale green, the aurora borealis dancing gently above the dying men. But even beauty becomes cruel when your fingers are numb and your stomach is empty. Somewhere along the march, the first men began to fall, and there was no way to carry the dead. They were left in the snow, frozen, still, unblinking. The group grew smaller, each step heavier, each sledge lighter, not by choice, but because there were fewer hands to pull them. Inuit hunters later recalled seeing pale, strange men dragging boats across the tundra, men who did not speak their language, men who looked frightened, confused, broken. They saw them once, then never again. Years later, rescue teams would discover a boat sitting atop a sled, abandoned on King William Island. Inside, 2 skeletons. one lying peacefully, the other curled beside him. Between them, a Bible, some chocolate, silver forks, a loaded pistol, and scraps of cloth, stitched and restitched as if someone even in death had tried to stay warm. One man was still wearing boots. The other had none. They also found something else. A message. A tiny slip of paper tucked into a rock cairn. It read, April 25th, 1848. Ships Erebus and Terror deserted. 105 souls under the command of Captain Crozier. Sir John Franklin died June 11th, 1847, and the total loss by deaths in the expedition has been to this date 9 officers and 15 men. The paper was written in calm, careful script, as if hope still lingered, as if they still believed they might reach safety. It is the last official record ever found from the Franklin expedition. The Inuit of Nunavut told more. Tales of starving men begging for food, of discarded clothing found in odd places, of bones cracked and boiled for the marrow inside, of a group of men resting beside a small stream never seen again. For years, the British refused to believe the Inuit. They refused to believe that their noble sailors might have turned to cannibalism. But the bones, the tool marks, the evidence, told the truth. Eventually, the trail faded. No more notes, no more camps, no more signs of life. The last men vanished into snow and silence. Somewhere between King William Island and the mainland, the final breath was taken, the final footstep made, and the Arctic closed over them once again. To this day, the Arctic watches. The wind still whispers across the ice. The bones, when found, are still dressed in rags. The ships still sleep beneath the sea. What final thoughts passed through their minds? Did they dream of England, of home, of sunlight and warmth, and green fields? Or did they just simply fall asleep and never wake up? In England, the months passed, then a year, then 2. No word from the Franklin expedition. No ship, no letter, no sign. At first, people waited. They believed in the mission. They believed in Franklin. But as silence stretched longer, hope became unease. And then it became dread. At the center of that worry stood one woman, Lady Jane Franklin, John's wife, loyal, strong, unwilling to let his name or his men vanish into myth. She wrote letters, held meetings, spoke to Parliament, raised money. She persuaded the Royal Navy to act. If no one else would look for them, she would. In 1848, the first search vessels were sent north. One by one, ships combed the icy channels from the east, from the west. By land, by sea, they found nothing, only ice and wind. Years passed. New crews followed in Franklin's path. Dozens of expeditions between 1848 and 1859. Some disappeared themselves. Others turned back, frozen and broken. But slowly, clues emerged. In 1854, explorer John Ray met Inuit hunters who showed him objects from the Franklin expedition. Silver forks, buttons, a gold watch, boots, and stories. Terrible stories of starving white men who had resorted to cannibalism. Ray believed them. He brought the news back to Britain. The public was horrified. The Admiralty refused to accept it. But Lady Franklin kept searching. In 1859, searcher Francis McClintock reached King William Island. There, his team found the care note, the only written message left behind. We've read it already. April 25, 1848, Erebus and Terror deserted. Sir John Franklin died. 105 men under Crozier's command. The handwriting was calm. There was no panic in the ink, but it confirmed what everyone feared. The men were gone. The ships had been left behind. The Arctic had swallowed them whole. What modern maps missed, the Inuit remembered. They spoke of 2 large wooden ships trapped in the ice, of men with beards, sick and stumbling, of wreckage pushed ashore, of graves long forgotten. They even drew maps in the snow with their fingers, detailed, precise. But few listened. For over 100 years, those maps sat in dusty archives, and the ships remained hidden. Years turned into decades. The story of the Franklin expedition became legend. Books were written. Theories debated. Was it scurvy? Starvation? Lid poisoning? Mutiny? All of the above. And still, the Arctic remained quiet, its secrets frozen in place. Then, in 2014, nearly 170 years after the ships vanished, a Canadian parks team made a breakthrough. Using sonar, Inuit oral maps, and drones, they found a strange shape beneath the sea. In the waters near King William Island, it was a ship, perfectly preserved in the freezing cold. It was HMS Erebus. Inside were plates, books, boots, cabinets still closed, as if the crew had only just left, as if time had simply paused. 2 years later, in 2016, a second wreck was found in Terror Bay, farther south. It was HMS Terror, and somehow it was even better preserved. Windows intact, wooden planks untouched, still, silent, ghostly. The Arctic had kept it like a tomb. Divers described the experience as haunting, peering into rooms no human had seen in 170 years. Beds made, drawers filled, memories frozen. In the years since, scientists have exhumed and tested remains. They've identified some of the crew. Using DNA testing, young men, many under 30, who died far from home. Researchers study their bones, their teeth, the lead in their blood, the cuts on their ribs, trying to understand how they died and why. And still, some questions have no answers. The ice reveals its secrets one breath at a time. A plate here, a skeleton there, a journal page unreadable, smudged with salt and time. The Franklin expedition has not yet told its whole story. And maybe it never will. Now, as you rest, Imagine the stillness of that place, the creak of ships beneath the ice, the soft crackle of snow falling, the aurora curling across the sky. Somewhere, deep beneath the waves, Erebus and Terror still sleep. And in the snowfields above, the footsteps of the men fade gently into the silence. No shouting, no violence, just quiet, just cold, just time, standing still. And now, as your eyes grow heavy, drift with them into the snow, into the sky, into sleep. Let the story dissolve. Let the silence hold you. Let the stars turn slowly above a white sea. And now, as we close the story of the Franklin expedition, we leave behind the snow, the silence, the sea. Ships may sink, maps may fade, but stories drift on the wind. Rest easy, traveler. When we meet again, we'll wander through time with quiet steps and open hearts. You've been listening to The Sleepy Historian, where every story is a candle in the dark, and every night brings a new journey through time. Until next time, sleep deeply, and remember, history never truly disappears. It just waits, quietly, to be remembered.